Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. So today we're going to be reviewing a couple of events that are now live in the game. The first off being the UDK birthday celebration known as the Titan event, as well as the semi-accompanying Heroes Path. So first things first, the Titan event is similar to the anniversary Titan event we had a few months ago, but this one is a lot shorter in time and span, as well as the amount of points required. So 1,500 for the maximum. And of course, the most notable reward here is that you get the perfect soul, as well as the opportunity to get all the way up to 4-star in split souls for the cancer that is known as the ultimate death knight. Now, in addition, you do get a decent amount of rewards. The first page isn't that amazing, but you get some energy, you get some shards along the way, ancient shards, some gems, epic book, more energy here, a couple of glyphs, decent stuff, void shard as well. There's no sacred shard, unfortunately, 100 gems here, but there is an immortal soul stone, there is a legendary tome, and there is an eternal soul stone. So if you can, definitely put in some effort and try and max it out. Now, as far as how difficult this is going to be to complete on a free-to-play account such as myself, I think comparing it to the previous Titan event, that it is definitely doable. There will be ample opportunity just in the game, in events and tournaments, as you can see here. There's just going to be milestones where you'd have to put in perhaps a little bit more effort than usual. So what I mean by that is that you might have to level up some gear and artifact enhancement you would otherwise skip because it's in between fusion or stuff like that. Put a little bit of effort in, a little bit of silver in, some gems perhaps for energy for certain things, and then you'll be able to get some of the milestone rewards as far as getting points towards this. But overall, I think it can definitely be worth it. For me, of course, legendary tome there, so I definitely want to get that, but I also do want the eternal soul stone and the immortal, to be fair. There's a good amount of gems along the way. It's not going to be a perfect refund for how much you might put in excess as far as getting all these extra milestones, but you're going to get some return, as well as there's some energy return as well. Immortal soul coins, void shard is good as well. The one thing to note here is that they did say that there is a maximum of 1,750 points, meaning there's 250 extra, so there is some wiggle room. However, as we'll see a bit later, the extra 250 is in the Heroes Path that's going on right now, so you may or may not be able to get that, which we'll talk about a bit later. So for those of you out there, is this worth doing? I would say if you really don't care about the rewards, so you don't care about the last page, then just kind of playing the game like you normally do, you'll probably get to at least 3 or 4 just by doing a dragon tournament here and there, or ice golem tournament, or dungeon divers that comes with those, etc. So you're not gonna really have to do much effort if you don't really care about maxing out these rewards and you don't really care about the souls. I don't use Ultimate Death Knight personally, so I really don't care about the split souls all the way up to 4. I mean, I guess I could ascend him. Mine's not even ascended, but I guess I could give him the blessing just because, but I have no intention to use him. So my eyes are set on the last page, as I mentioned, so I'm going to try and max out to the best of my ability, but I am also not going to break the bank to do so. So already we can kind of see some of the events and tournaments that do offer some of the points. Like I mentioned, the Heroes Path does have some. This artifact enhancement that's coming up will also offer some points, as well as the ongoing Dragon Tournament offers some points, and the Classic Arena Tournament going on right now also offers some points. Oh, and apparently the Champion Training Tournament does as well. So pretty much every tournament and event live in the game, and ones that will be live starting tomorrow, are going to offer some points, at least for the beginning, and the event goes on for I think 2-ish weeks or so. So there's going to be plenty of time, 2 weeks. There's going to be plenty of time for you to put in some effort, and I definitely encourage you to do so. But now we've got to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is this particular Heroes Path. I'm a little bit late to the party relative to the early bird content creators, so you guys may have already seen what this path entails, but if you haven't, just know that it is a combination of a summon rush and dungeon divers. So ordinarily, it's actually a decent deal as far as your return, as far as pulling shards for these types of events, but in this case, they did not go that route, and they went completely off the rails and kind of made it what I even classify as unreasonable returns for the amount of investment it's going to cost you. So if we check out the breakdown here, you can see the dungeon divers here, and you would get points for this if you're, for example, running the Dragon Tournament going on right now for the UDK Titan event. But there's also a 10x going on, and again, this replaces the Summon Rush, so there won't be a Summon Rush on top of this. This is effectively the Summon Rush, so you get these respective amounts of coins for pulling different types of shards. Now, the real sad part about this is that the rewards at the bottom are very, very, very juicy, but they are also redonkulously hard to get, to the point of being unreasonable. So we have 1, 2, 3, count them, 4 legendary tomes up for grabs, which I would love to get one of them, but that's probably not going to happen. And a Mortal Soulstone as well, an Eternal Soulstone, bunch of Essence, but most people are probably going to go for the Eternal Soulstone. And at the very bottom, you have the opportunity to get yourself a guaranteed Roxim, who is a relatively underwhelming champion who kind of requires Perfect Veil to really activate aspects of his kit. He does have, I think, or he can have AoE decrease defense and weaken, but he has to be under a veil, but he doesn't put himself under a veil unless he uses his A2, but he prefers to use the A3 on auto, and it's just weird. It's a 4-turn cooldown compared to like a Draco who has it on a 3-turn cooldown. So it's just, he's not the best champion. He's definitely not worth the amount of sacreds, which we'll talk about in a bit. It's going to require you to get him. And so I don't know what they were thinking, but he's definitely not worth the investment. He's not that quality of a champion. If it was someone else like a Duchess maybe, then I could say fine, that's probably worth it. But yeah, in this case, he's okay. He's probably somewhere in the B-C tier as far as the champion is concerned. But if I had him, I definitely wouldn't use him. He'd definitely be in the vault. So if I haven't filled you with enough dread, then let's talk about the totals for each of the paths here that we can identify. So I've defined them as the left and the right tome. So the far right and the far left and the far right coming all the way down here. But I biased it to go through the Titan event points because that's probably where most people would get. And the difference is only 200 points. So that's relatively negligible in the grand scheme of things. But going for the tomes on the left hand or right hand side is going to cost you 30,100 points. Directly adjacent to those, you do have the key paths. So it's skipping the points here and coming down the oil path and getting up the keys, because if you were to go for the middle path here, which we'll end on, you will need both of the keys. Therefore, you should be aware of how many points it costs to get both of the keys. So the left key is going to cost you, again, coming down through the Titan event points, because that's where most people would like to go. That's going to cost you 13,000 points on the left hand side here, and on the right hand side it's going to cost a little bit more because of the difference in the chaos ore here. The quality of the chaos ore here is going to cost you 15,000 points. And then once you've done all of that, you still have to come all the way down here through the middle path. These are identical, so it doesn't really matter. Use both of the keys here. You come down to the Eternal, pick either of the tomes, probably the one on the left again for the Eternal. So getting all the way down the middle path to the Eternal, including the side keys, is going to cost a total of 82,600 points. And then, of course, if you also wanted to go for Roxanne, which I do not recommend, you add 60,000 of that for a grand total of 142,600 points, all the way getting both of the keys and down to Roxanne. Now, I also did another calculation that's looking at how many points it would require you to just get all of the Titan points or Titan event points from this hero's path. And so if you're just going down the UDK path, shall we call it that, so that would be coming down here, getting this one, coming down here, getting this, and then going down the center and getting this one, and those are all of the event or Titan event point nodes. That would cost you a total of 21,800 points. So as always, I do have this summarized in my spreadsheet, which will be linked in the description box down below. So we have our standard distribution of coins based on the stage of dungeon you can do, all the way up to hard 10. And in this case, it's only a Dungeon Divers, and there is a champion training event going on right now. So you could get it. You can get the shields from campaign, or the items, artifacts from running the Dragon tournament going on right now, or any of the other dungeon tournaments that are going to come out. Bit of a spoiler here as far as the amount of energy it would require. But the important part to note here is that we have each of the paths listed out here as far as what they require, all of the point nodes going up to them. And so one of the things I'd like to highlight here is that this is the equivalent of points it's going to cost in sacred shards. So in order to get one legendary tome, it would cost you 7 sacreds, or either of the legendary tomes, it would cost 7 sacreds, which in fairness is roughly equivalent to how much it would cost in a normal summon rush. So for a summon rush, it's 500 points per sacred, and usually the first tome on like the beginning of Kraken Row, as it's called, is usually around 3,500 or 7 sacreds. So it's roughly equivalent to a basic run-of-the-mill summon rush, which is indicative of, one, not being worth it because you're not getting any additional value unless you just want to pull for the champions in the 10x, which we can talk about in a few seconds. The other obvious thing here that sticks out like a sore thumb is the middle two paths here. So the Eternal Soulstone on its own, just getting all the way down there while picking up both of the keys, would cost you 19 sacred shards. And then if you wanted to go for the bonus of Roxam, not much of a bonus, but nonetheless, if you wanted to go for Roxam, it would cost you a total of 32 sacreds. And yet that is getting 4,500 points per sacred shard. So this is effectively a guaranteed champion for 32 sacreds, which is the worst deal ever. I mean, if we freaked out about 20, at least some people have freaked out about 20, 32 is completely ridiculous, and he's also not worth it. So definitely do not recommend trying it at all for that purpose, unless you're just already pulling for the 10x, then you just get what you get, and maybe you can pick up Roxam along the way. But I don't think the draft is that amazing for people to go that hard. But once again, the UDK path here is kind of the extra one if you wanted to do like the bare minimum and you wanted to pad yourself, because like I mentioned earlier, you can get up to 250 points toward the event, which will help offset all the other events and tournaments that are coming up, so you don't have to maximize everything there. That would only cost you 5 sacreds. And again, you know, it's during this relatively decent 10x, and that I would say 5 sacreds or 7 sacreds for the tome is more like you're going for some of the epics that are featured in the 10x. But that is an option for some people that have a little bit of extra sacreds. Fusion just ended, so a lot of people probably won't or might not. But if you do and you want to put a dent in the UDK Titan event, or if you use him in the Cancer Stone skin build that everyone runs him in, then you really want that perfect soul, then spending a few sacreds just to guarantee that soul at a relatively high tier. 4-star is pretty high tier as far as polymorph or whatever else you use is concerned. So guaranteeing that for 5 sacreds is not a terrible deal, because generally speaking, it's going to be a bunch of soul essence and a bunch of soul coins that you have to farm over months and months if you wanted to get the equivalent of that, or you just have to get super lucky with an immortal soul stone or something to get a UDK soul that high. Another reason why I highlighted this in terms of sacred cost is because we already know that there's no point doing the math. It's Dungeon Divers is the worst way to get points for events like these, and Dungeon Divers in general are just bad anyway as far as point acquisition. So I didn't even bother calculating the number, because 30,000 points in terms of these is going to be like 50,000 energy, which no one's going to have, no one's going to do. This is meant to be a summon rush predominantly, and then you can offset a little bit with running some dungeons. So I plan to skip this entirely. It's not really worth it. It goes on for I think 3 more days, so whatever I get from the Dragon tournament over the weekend as far as artifacts there, that'll get me some amount of Dungeon Divers points, as well as the champion training that's going on, the champion training tournament. Yeah, tongue twister. But as far as that, I'll get the points that I get, and I'm probably more so going to focus on the UDK path, and so just try to get as many of the event points as possible, because then I might be able to skip a Dungeon Divers or Artifact Enhancement down the road and just make that much easier to get all the way to that Eternal Soulstone that I desire. And I also mentioned that I would talk about the 10x that's going on right now, and apparently the theme is Clan Boss Beast Champions. And so we have Krisk the Ageless for the Void Legendary. For the normal legendaries, we have Mishinaki, Corvus the Corruptor, and Roshkar the Tower, all of which are decent. Tower is more of like a block damage Helicath type build. Corvus the Corruptor does have buff extension on a 3-turn cooldown, so he can be part of an infinity comp, but he's also a super duper poisoner. Mishinaki, well known for the join in attack on his passive, so he can deal a lot of extra damage with all the extra A1s he throws in over a long and sustained fight. We have Demitha, of course, the queen of one of the most popular unkillable comps in the game, with her block damage and the myth air type stuff. You also have Seeker and Deacon, two of the champions that really enable 2-to-1 speed tunes as far as any unkillable team or traditional team. And of course, Doom Priest, the quintessential affinity friendly champion as far as making your clan boss composition affinity friendly. So once again, if you do find value in any of the champions, probably more so on the epic side, and you want to pull a little bit for one of the tomes, or you want to pull some for the UDK Titan event points, then I can get behind that. I can recommend that. But if you're trying to pull all the way down to the Eternal, it's probably not worth it unless you're really chasing a Mishinaki or something like that. Or if you're just pulling YOLOing for Krisk and you want to get him by pulling a bunch of Voids, which are a lot less than Sacreds, but still a decent amount of points as far as the Hero's Path is concerned, then you could definitely do that. Again, not my recommendation. It's up to you guys what you want to do with your shards, but nonetheless, you've been informed of what it's going to cost and what it's going to take. All right, so that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys plan to do for both of these events, and what are your thoughts on the Titan event and or this current Hero's Path. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below, and if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to hit that subscribe button down below as well. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.